Today's episode is on Crimes Against Humanity from an Inevitable Split, a document on state-sponsored ethnic cleansing in Manipur, 2023. Published by Kuki Student Organization and Zomi Student Federation. Crimes Against Humanity. The premeditated violence incited by the Manipur state and radical Meitei mob that ignited on the 3rd of May 2023. Following the peaceful protests organized by the tribals is a blatant disregard for human life, human rights, and most importantly, human dignity. It is an attempt to wipe out a targeted section of the populace through the use of brute force, under the protection and assistance of the state government. It is one of the worst crimes against humanity witnessed in Manipur state, and those complicit in the act, from the top to bottom, must be brought to account. The ensuing violence in Manipur is thus characterized by unprecedented loss of tribal Kuki lives, massive destruction to countless tribal property, brazen vandalism and desecration of Kukis, places of worship, fatal destruction, arson, and vandalization of Kuki homes, and the displacement of thousands of Kuki from their home in Impol to makeshift rehabilitation camps, and eventually to their respective Kuki districts. With this Impol pogrom, the city has lost its moral right to be the state capital. Targeted ethnic cleansing. The outbreak of violence is deliberately targeted against tribals, particularly the Kuki people. Hundreds of Kukis are openly lynched to death in Impol Valley, and the death toll has been on a constant rise, while perpetrators of the violence enjoy unbridled impunity. Homes, churches, and schools were set on fire and destroyed. Not even women and children were spared. Kukis in the Impol Valley were the worst casualty of all. A valley now firmly associated with death in the eyes and hearts of the Kukis. There is ample prima facie videos and photo evidence published by reputed news agencies showing the Manipur police commandos aiding and abetting the perpetrators of this crime against humanity, even as there were strict attempts to filter media reporting and coverage. The nature of violence. The brutality and barbarity of the crime was a bold statement to show how much the Kuki peoples are unwanted in Manipur state. The manner in which the hatred was manifested was not anticipated by anyone. Letmanthang Haukip, an Indian revenue officer living in Lamphel, Impol, was forcefully pulled out of his government quarter and hacked mercilessly to death. He served as tax assistant, Income Tax Government of India, Union and State, Kukis, government officials, Kukis civil servants posted in Impol, and Kukis political representatives, member of Legislative Assembly were also not spared. While the most senior BJP MLA from Thanlin Assembly constituency, Puvangsajan Volt, was lynched by the radical Meitei mob in public view. The houses of Letpao Haukip Minister, Tribal Affairs and Hills, P. Dungal, DJ Clay Kongsai, Marikum, MP Regia, Saba, etc., were all vandalized and burned. Many Kukis' deaths are still unaccounted for, as many dead bodies in Impol hospital morgues remain inaccessible to families. The attempt to recover their dead by the Kukis is itself a threat to their own life. As Meitei mob continue to patrol the streets of Impol city, many family members are simply recorded as missing, with no Kukis family harboring the hope of them returning alive. It is also noteworthy that throughout their history, the Meiteis have been in conflict with every ethnic communities in Manipur state, including the Ping, Nagas, and non-locals, that is Hindus, from outside the state. In every instance, they have resorted to the use of brute force. They have made might is right the maxim of the day and depraved killings their style of humiliation. As evidences show, their culture of violence is not only one of destruction, but also of inhumane humiliation. Forced displacement of Kukis communities. Tens of thousands of Kukis are displaced from the Impol Valley and surrounding areas, and their properties completely vandalized, looted, and burnt to cinders. Thousands of Kukis are currently living in hundreds of temporary shelters and relief camps. These camps are locally run and maintained by the Kuki's public and philanthropic organizations without the Manipur government support. To push their case, the Manipur government has been constantly trying to downplay the extent of this humanitarian crisis, and have attempted to evade their responsibilities of ushering protection and rehabilitation on the pretext that these politicians, ex-servicemen, civil servants, and daily wage laborers are possible illegal immigrants. Actually, more than 16,000 Kukis, people from the Impal Valley, took shelter in various military compounds to escape the ordeal. Shelter seekers increased by the day till it was difficult for the military to sufficiently protect and provide for them. They were stuck for days, surviving with very basic amenities. Only with the intervention of the Indian Army were they later transported to more secure locations and relief camps in the hills. Many were not as fortunate as they are. With the intervention of the Army, thousands in Impal were able to escape to metropolitan cities in neighboring states. Till date, approximately 7,000 people have taken shelter in Mizoram, and the displaced are rehabilitated by the various Mizo civil society organizations. Torching of Kukis, villages and habitations. As per the data available on the 17th of May, 2023. A total of 162 villages, 5,670 houses and 8 schools have been burned by the radical Meitei mob. Such incessant atrocities uprooted Kukis not only from their homes, but also from their livelihood. As the Manipur state machinery is complicit in the ethnic cleansing, it remains unknown how life could ever be normal again for the displaced, if at all. Regardless of the negotiations and agreements that may yet come, the scars that they heavily carry will remain forever etched in their bodies, their hearts and their memories. Atrocities against women and children. Women and children are the most vulnerable in the face of armed ethnic cleansing. First-hand accounts of cases of sexual harassment and public disrobing, public gang rape and naked parading are being reported from Kangpoki district. Women with infants were not spared. While instances of pregnant women giving birth in relief camps are reported, there are also cases of new mothers separated from their newborn babies, as a consequence of the man and woman hunt, carried out by Meitei mobs, even in hospitals. Whether they will be reunited is a far-fetched dream for now. A mother and son who were on their way to the army camp to take shelter were dragged out of the car they were traveling and hacked to death, just inches away from the shelter camp. The mother Guzaveng, years 57, serves as an undersecretary in the Agriculture and Veterinary Department, Government of Manipur State. Such was the brutality and barbarity of the Meitei mobs. The Manipur state machinery also treats women with indifference, and neither is security, recourse, and rehabilitation provided by the Manipur government to date. All those who could escape the ordeal are now lodged in locally run relief camps and shelters in Charachanpur, Tennupal, and Kangpoki Hill districts. There were also numerous confirmed reports of lady students targeted in educational institutions by mobs. Having collected the list of Kuki students, research scholars, staff and faculty members, particularly those belonging to the Kuki community beforehand radicalized, Meitei mobs openly barged into and burgled ladies' hostels and quarters in the state's premier Central University, that is Manipur University. They selectively pulled them out of their hostels, dormitory and residences, and those who could not escape on time were left at the mercy of the mob. Their belonging, including their official identity cards, important educational documents and books, were burned to the ground. In other institutions, similar acts were carried out. The students of Nightingale Nursing Institute, Parampet, Impal East, were dragged out from the hostel and flogged. In these cases, all the attempts by their hostel mates to shield them proved futile. Even after hearing, seeing, and witnessing some of the most horrific ordeals and murders of their families, relatives, friends, and people, the Kuki women continue to defend the lives of the innocent Meitei populace stuck in Lamka Tudachampur district. It is due to their courageous efforts that no harm is inflicted on the Meitei populace. Manipur state-sponsored routine atrocities. To date, Manipur police commandos and the radical Meitei mobs continue to freely operate against the Kukis. The Kukis are left with no option but to defend themselves and their land against the marauding mobs. And Manipur state forces with whatever they can salvage their right to defend themselves against the threat of their very existence continues to be portrayed through various misleading narratives. The use of rudimentary licensed hunting guns to defend their villages are used as a pretext to vilify the Kukis as armed aggressors, and surveillances on Kukis' villages are carried out in the name of patrols. This false narratives have justified and facilitated Meitei infiltration into Kukis' villages bordering the valley districts, and continues to be a major threat for the Kukis communities. Contrary to Manipur state control media reports, it was the radical Meitei mobs who were armed with sophisticated weaponry and ammunition, which were freely taken with no opposition from the state police. From more than 17 arms storage of the state forces, including the police training center at around the same period, the district administration in Churachandpur district, upon the instruction of the state government, issued an order number 493 DCCCP on the 14th of February 2023 for submission of arms and arms license. This order came under the supervision of the Chief Minister himself, who justified the exercise by saying that the guns will be returned to the rightful owner in due course. A week after the guns were submitted to Churachandpur police station, the same were ferried to an undisclosed location in the capital Imphal city. It is an unusual exercise because the verification of gun licenses has not been carried out in the last 10 years. Which was asserted by the Chief Minister himself in the Assembly. The dire need to renew license at this hour, despite grave opposition, established that the state had a clear intention to disarm the Kukis and render them defenseless against the atrocities to come. Moreover, while gun licenses in the hills were forced to be renewed and guns submitted, the Manipur government issued more than 10,000 gun licenses in the valley. The atrocities also saw an active participation of in-service personnel. Video evidence clearly show that the Manipur police commandos assisted the Meitei mobs. They can be seen leading the rioters towards Haokip-Phang, a Kuki neighborhood in Imphal, minutes before it was set on fire. The destruction in the valley was catastrophic because it was apparent that the state forces were supporting the mobs and the residents were defenseless against the invaders. There was no sufficient troop deployment in the danger zones where the Kuki communities lived during the crucial 48-hour period of damage and bloodshed. Additionally, neither a fire department nor an ambulance could be seen or heard in Imphal city. It was a pogrom directed at a particular community that involved intentional ethnic cleansing. In a truly concerning incident, an ambulance driver named Dalanthang Zhu, son of late Dushing Zhu, of Ongkap-Phang, Churachandpur district, was lynched in Bishnupur district inside the premise of the police station. He was returning from Imphal on 3rd of May 2023, caught amidst the violence in Bishnupur district. He escaped and sought protection inside the police station at Moirang, with the hope of surviving the mobs, but was beaten to death inside the police station. There were several reported cases of custodial deaths of Kukis during the ethnic cleansing, including the deaths of Dalianthong of Ongkap-Phang, Kamanlen Kongsai of Timangalam, Lila Root of Satan, to name a few. Meanwhile, the state only broke its silence on the night of the 4th of May 2023. After 24 hours, when every house and habitation of the Kukis, people in Imphal Valley was damaged and razed to the ground, forcing all inhabitants to desert their homes. By the Governor's Order Number H3608 Halves, 2023, HDHD, the Home Department gave district magistrates the authority to issue a shoot-at-sight orders in exceptional circumstances in an effort to manage and justify the deafening silence of the state authorities, particularly the Chief Minister. The directives rarely had any effect in Imphal and other valley districts, as the mobs were given unlimited freedom. to cause mayhem at their leisure, with the support of the Maite Police Commandos. Moreover, the Armed Forces Special Powers Act, 1958 was deliberately retained in the hill areas, giving impunity to security forces. Even though the main perpetrators of violence against the Indian security forces are the secessionist valley-based extremists or the latest ambush of security forces carried out by the Maite extremist groups in Churakanpur involved the killing of Commanding Officer 46, Assam Rifle, Colonel Vip, along with his wife and his 5-year-old son, in the year 2021. In addition to Impul City, the act was removed on the 24th of March 2023 from valley areas including Moirang and Nambal, which were also epicenters of the ethnic cleansing. Desecration of religious places. Places of worship were not spared by the Maite mob. There was absolutely no regard given for the sanctity of religious places. Instead, the mob took pride in destroying and ransacking the church, raising their flag Salai Terrat on top of it, and desecrating it before burning them down. In addition to this, church properties were looted, desecrated, and destroyed. No place of worship belonging or related to the Kuki people is left untouched by the radical Maite mobs. The attempt was to destroy the most sacred institution and symbol of the Kukis, the Holy of Holies. The presence of fire brigades whenever the fire threatened the surrounding Maite buildings, but not when the churches burned to the ground, shows how biased and communal the state machineries are. As of the 10th of May 2023, according to confirmed reports by the Churakanpur Christian Goodwill Council, the number of churches torched and razed to the ground rises to 128. In an immediate attempt to garner the sympathy of the national public and divert their attention from the atrocities of the ethnic cleansing, many attempts were made by the Maite-owned and controlled state media to project the conflict as a Hindu-Christian confrontation. However, as not a single temple was defiled or burnt by the Kukis, and not a single Maite killed or harmed in Kukis areas, the false narrative quickly ran out of fuel. In true Christian and religious spirit, the Churakanpur Christian Goodwill Council continued to provide food and water, along with medications, to the Maite populace, sheltered in army camps in Lamka. Attack on educational institutions and burning of schools belonging to Kuki students, employees, and their families have to seek shelter in the army camp located inside the university campus, even as the organized mob carried out a manhunt based on a list that was submitted to them beforehand. The premier central university, where values of humanism and brotherhood are taught and inculcated through the ages, became the site of hatred, arson, and violence overnight. Many of the students are flogged and beaten in public view, while a few of them are able to escape in time. But for all of them, staff, faculties, and students alike, their quarters and rooms are looted, and their properties, including their certificates, identity cards, and other important official documents, are burned. Without their official documents, and with the growing popular narrative of illegal immigrants deliberately propagated, it is possible that many will find it extremely difficult to recover their own identities, especially if they continue to remain under the same political administration. The complicit state government and university officials are unlikely to make it easy for the Kuki students. Even as some of the most barbaric impulses overran the university for days, the administration lent a deaf ear. Till now, no condemnation is issued by the authorities or explanation on how the mob was allowed a free-run assault on their students. The situation is far from the state of normalcy, with Kuki students, staff and faculty leaving the campus with army escort for fear of life. In yet another extreme and bizarre case of continued indifference in the circular dated the 10th of May 2023, the university informed all employees to start attending offices, as if the ethnic cleansing of their own employees and students was a casual occurrence that can be washed aside. Such circulars were also issued for other institutions, including Jawaharlal Nehru Institute of Medical Sciences. All the schools owned by Kukis in the valley were burned to the ground. as the utter disregard for educational welfare becomes evident. The future state of education for Kukis in hill areas is now an area of grave concern. Attack on judicial personnel. The principal role of the judiciary is to protect the rule of law and ensure the supremacy of law. It is the institution that safeguards the rights of the individual, settles disputes under law, and ensures that democracy does not give way to individual or group dictatorship. However, in the present ethnic cleansing, even judicial personnel were not spared. This is a direct disrespect to the judicial system of the country and the ideals they hold as sacred. At least 17 Kuki judicial personnel, serving in different capacities in the judicial system, were attacked and made to escape for their lives, silencing and distorting ground realities. Details of what is happening on the ground are restricted from being reported. The ban of the internet, while it is done on the pretext of maintaining law and order, is a convenient ploy to restrict local news, information, and voices from reaching out. While the hills remained in a complete blackout, the Manipur state control media and the government in Imphal in tandem are authoritatively and shrewdly painting a different picture of the violence. The state media have relentlessly portrayed the Kukis as perpetrators and the Meiteis as victims. Anyone following the Manipur state media will be acutely aware of the Meitei communal narrative and impulses in news reporting, and the attempt to completely undermine the rationale of tribal grievances and suffering. The way these narratives developed in their favor demonstrates their absolute dominance. These biases disclose not only the communal nature of their ethnic hatred towards others, but more importantly, also show how little they know and understand about the citizens of Manipur state. The question about whether the Meiteis are fit to shoulder the responsibility of being a majority community in a diverse community setup is an important question that needs serious interrogation. Return of human remains and dignity of the dead, despite repeated requests to the state government and hospital authorities. Access to morgues in Imphal hospitals is denied, including Regional Institute of Medical Sciences and Jawaharlal Nehru Institute of Medical Sciences in Imphal, where estimated hundreds of Kukis dead are kept. Neither is it possible to retrieve the actual number and list of dead in these morgues. Real-time ground reports alarmingly suggest that the yet unclaimed dead in the RIMS morgue are to be incinerated soon. This is against international and national norms of not only human rights, but of human dignity. No serious initiatives have been taken by the Manipur government or the State Human Rights Commission to facilitate the return of the remains. The United Nations Interagency Standing Committees, Operational Guidelines on Human Rights and Natural Disasters also recommends that appropriate measures should be taken to facilitate the return of human remains, including their proper management and disposal, as well as of respect for the needs of families. In India, the right to fair treatment and dignity extends equally to dead bodies. The Apex Court of India recognized that the right to life, fair treatment, and dignity extend not only to a living person, but also to a dead body. The court highlighted the importance of conferring dignity to dead persons, as highlighted in Parmanand Katara versus Union of India, 1989. Next chapter on reality checks on some false propaganda. Thanks for watching and listening.